raised up are Glenn Pollock and Aaron DeMacara. So Glenn, you'll be answering the question first.
Okay, thanks.
So what transit options should Port Coquitlam advocate for to connect the city with the rest of the region? How should Port Coquitlam best make use of the Evergreen Line?
I think the Mayor Moore was, as he said earlier, he was the mayor, the person from the Mayor's Council that was put forward to put the plan, the Mayor's plan in place, and they did a great job. And one of the things that Greg advocated for in that plan, and he had the support of our council, was to add beeline buses. To add like Lougheed Highway's got a big median in the middle. We want to add buses, beeline buses that run every 10 or 15 minutes or even 5 minutes at peak hours from Maple Ridge right to the Evergreen Line to feed that Evergreen Line. I think that's, I think the provincial government needs to recognize what a great plan the Mayor's Council put together. They had funding options there, they did a great job. If we look at that plan, and especially specifically to our neighborhood, the beelines and stuff, I think that's the way to go. I also think more community buses. I mean, Coquitlam's done planning for transit-oriented community on Bird Mountain, and they got the buses because transit is bringing money. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Aaron.
First of all, because of Evergreen Line is coming to Coquitlam, and for Coquitlam residents, we all will be affected on this. And I would support extra busing. I agree with Glenn, and every 10, I don't think so every 5 minutes will happen, but every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it should happen, because we won't have a SkyTrain station for Coquitlam, but we definitely need extra busing to use the lane from all the way to Coquitlam to Maple Ridge, Meadows.
Great. Glenn, do you have a question of Aaron?
No, I think we agree on this. More buses. We only
Okay,
had
we'll
the
go to the public questions. Now, folks, remember you're supposed to be on your iPhones, pumping these ones up, the ones that you really want to have asked. So the first one that isn't... How important for the region is it for mayor and council to be collaborative with Port Moody and Coquitlam? What types of regional issues do you share expertise on? Aaron, you...
Well, it's just, we have been started talking about this last couple of years, and I personally don't agree with this, because having 3 cities become one will create more problems, and I don't think so we are ready for that. And this study should be studied, this project should be studied, and down the line 10 years from now, because each city is growing rapidly. Look at the Port Coquitlam. We have all these new complexes and new buildings. I mean, Coquitlam is in the same area, and having each, one city will create so many different problems. And as a Port Coquitlam, I'm sorry, we are not ready for this yet, and I personally don't support that.
Thanks, Glenn. It's not the question that's on the screen, actually. It's just coming up here. I'll repeat it. It's how important for the region is it for mayor and council to be collaborative with Port Moody and Coquitlam, and what types of regional issues do you share expertise on?
Yeah, I think it's crucial we work together. We've done a great job of that since this council came in, and the other Port Moody and Coquitlam. We've met 3 times a year, and the main things I think we need to deal with are transportation. That's the biggest one. Advocating together as a group for buses, and increased transportation, like you said earlier, transit options. We also need to plan our road networks. I mean, we're going to be butting heads with them on the Fremont thing. I assume, I don't know how that's going to go, but we've done a good job of working with them. It hasn't always had the result. They're putting a high-rise in at Westwood and Lincoln that's going to be 10 meters from some townhouses in PoCo, and they didn't listen to us on that. But other things, transit, of course, other regional issues that affect us all. Health. I started a collaborative health deal with the Tri-Cities, as you know, the chamber's involved with the other 2 cities, and there's many. The better we work together, the better off we are.
Thanks. Aaron, do you have a question of Councillor?
What would you do for make our seniors' life a little bit better than what they have now?
So the question has to pertain to your question has to pertain to the original question.
Okay, well, the question we just answered?
Yes.
Okay. Do you personally agree with all three cities become one?
No, I don't agree with amalgamation. I think it's an absolute non-starter.
I agree with that, yeah. And
Great, that Aaron, you're done. Thanks, gentlemen. That's your question, you're done too. Next up will be Laura Dupont and Daryl Penner. So Laura will have you answering the question first, and Daryl will be answering second. This is the chamber question, so it's not on the screen. Sorry. How do you plan on maintaining the budget surplus while keeping tax rates low?
I can hear you.
Maintaining the budget surplus.
I can hear you.
Maintaining the budget surplus while keeping taxes low.
Yes.
I guess making sure we have, in terms of the budget, making sure we have efficiencies and are paying attention to every dollar we spend in the city.
Sure. How do you plan on maintaining the budget surplus while keeping tax rates low?
I guess maintaining the budget surplus too is finding ways to produce revenue for the city. Maybe coming up with innovative ideas. I don't have any quick answers to what those might be, but increasing revenue and ensuring that we have good tax base to draw.
She needs to put the mic closer to her mouth.
Sorry.
Darren?
Thank you. Well, the trick is to keep that surplus as low as possible, because that's the overage, and we have to ultimately budget slightly over so that we aren't going back each time during the year to amend our entire budget. So the way that you try to do that is you continually assessment and improvement assessment, CIA. We talked about this earlier. So you're always looking at how do you best spend the dollars and where can we cut spending and be the most efficient at that.
So Laura, you can ask Daryl a question next time.
So what specific areas would you be able to consider cutting spending in your mind?
Well, when you look at, for instance, our fleet, looking at all the different vehicles that we've got, to ensure that when we're purchasing those vehicles that they're similar. So we're not buying 5 different types of trucks, we're buying one particular truck that we can then buy the same fuel filters and oil filters and so forth.
Great. So the first public question is, my screen's not refreshing. So, what 3 core values do you think matters most to residents of Port Coquitlam, and how do you align with those values? And Daryl, you go first.
Well, I mean, community safety, I think we all have to feel safe in our communities. I think a sense of community, it is vitally important that we feel that we belong to a community. And just, I don't know, I'm kind of lost as far as the core values. I mean, they're kind of mom and apple pie kind of things. It doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what city, what country. We all want to have the same values as far as a community, and so I mean I've lived here most of my life and have raised my family here, and so all those values certainly align with myself because that's why we love living here.
Thank you, Laura.
I would agree with Daryl that things that are important to the community are keeping our city livable, making sure that we don't have too many cars on the roads, that we keep a reasonable level of transit and our city is walkable and enjoyable, that we continue to encourage recreation and an active, healthy community. People talk about that a lot when I speak to them on the doorstep. And as you said, feeling safe in Port Coquitlam, and that we can walk around our city without having to worry. So yeah, I agree.
You're in agreement. Do you have a question for her, or do you want me to give you another one?
We can move on.
Okay. This is a repeat, but we're interested to hear what you have to say. Small business is the lifeblood of the city, and what can you do to stimulate the development of it in our region?
Well, want me to take it?
Sorry, Laura.
Oh, okay, so small businesses, I guess promoting small businesses, from what I understand from the Tri-Cities Chamber, is we have some of the smallest or lowest business tax rates in Metro Vancouver. So I think that is something that is typical to draw businesses into the community, and that's a good thing. I think there are other ways, like continuing to build a vibrant downtown core, which can encourage people to set up shop downtown and hopefully bring in more pedestrians and beef up the downtown core that we currently have.
Jeff.
It's kind of interesting because the last question actually goes to this one too, because a business comes into a community because it's a great community to do business in. Tax rates are really important. You have to be competitive, obviously, with the region. But it is, what is that community like? What are the people like? We've talked to lots of, for instance, high-tech companies that are looking at coming into Port Coquitlam. One of the reasons that they're looking at Port Coquitlam is because there's a real sense of community here. We have our trails and stuff, and I know that sounds kind of odd, but people in that industry really gravitate to the out-of-office experience so that when they come back to the office they can work. So having our trail system, having all of the festivals that we've got here, having competitive tax rates, going through, having a good solid city hall that people can come in there and they're going to get a straight answer. That's really what businesses look for.
Great. Laura, do you have a question of Daryl?
Okay, Daryl, we have a wonderful sense of community in Port Coquitlam. As the area around us continues to grow, including the Tri-Cities, how do we hang on to that sense of community? How do we not lose it with the increase in traffic and the increase in big city issues that come?
Well, the real jewel that we have here is the fact we have a downtown core. That is a very small town kind of thing. If you go to New West or Burnaby or Coquitlam, you say, well, where's downtown? There's not a specific identity. So by having that and promoting those things, and promoting, again, back to our festivals, we have May Day that is absolutely excellent. The Salmon Festival is awesome. That draws a lot of people into the community. And the car show. That's...
Thanks, Daryl, and your time is up. I'd like to remind the audience that if you have questions, please write your questions down on your forms, and I believe we have one of our Chamber employees, Paige, will come around. Paige, put your hand up, and she'll pick up questions for you. The next contestants up, Sherry Carroll and Wayne Markland. So the first question will be a Chamber question. The first response will come from Sherry, and the second from Wayne. So Sherry, industrial land across the Metro Vancouver region is shrinking. How do you propose to protect industrial zone lands in Port Coquitlam?
Well, Port Coquitlam's industrial lands the light industrial lands are essentially built out. Those are the lands that we've actually put aside for light industry. So in order to protect what we've got, you have to keep them in business. And that means you have to pay attention to the businesses that are already there. There's lots of interesting options that are coming out of the current council, that I think might actually help a great deal. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, don't let the light industrial lands get rezoned for residential, please. That way.
Wayne.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Industrial land across the Metro Vancouver region is shrinking. How do you propose to protect industrial land zoned in Port Coquitlam?
Well, I believe that we can actually change zoning in some of the light industrial areas so that we can increase office spaces that are necessary where we have warehouses that are sitting half empty and we're unable to even use them as warehouses. So by pertaining the zoning change and bringing in office, we're creating more employment and we're also creating more businesses that are coming into the land, and we're going to be using the land for industrial purposes. We have some top manufacturers already that are in Port Coquitlam, and I believe that if we continue using our industrial lands for business will be fine, as long as we don't go to residential and no development that way.
So Sherry, do you have a question for Wayne?
Yes. One of the things that's a problem with our light industrial lands is that it's really hard to get at them on transit. So if you change the zoning to have more office space in those light industrial areas, you can't get people there. Office space really should reside in what I call downtown core, either here or the north side. So that in general, once you have a look at the businesses that are actually going to go in there.
Is it a question, Sherry? Because you're out of time. Wayne, I think there was a question in there. If you want to dig it
All
out.
right, the question is, what do you think about that? Because it's a big
Thank you, Sherry.
Interesting, that's a loaded question. I do believe that you're right, there is a lack of transit going through that area, but if it is an industrial area, there are major routes that do go through it. As we know, Maryhill Bypass goes through, Broadway goes through, Pitt River. All that area does have some type of connection. So there are routes that people can use, and they can ride their bikes.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to one more question from the public, and it's the one on the far right. It has 9 votes. Would you support the redevelopment of PoCo Recreational Complex? If so, please elaborate on your vision for the new center and what it would include. And if you can prioritize that 1 to 3, that would be great. And Wayne, you'll respond first.
Number 1, yes, absolutely. We need to develop our complex. We need more ice rinks. I would love to see a developer come in like Planet Ice and develop that area so we can have commercial, retail down below, alongside the rinks, and then we would be able to have a facility upstairs so that people that come into our communities and spend their money have the food and drinks after and come into our downtown section. By developing more retail spaces right along that area, we would be able to make sure that our dollars are spent, and the developers would be able to bring in most of their money so the taxpayers doesn't get nailed with a lot of the expense.
Thank you, Sherry.
This is a very interesting question because there's no doubt in my mind, not everybody, that the rec center needs to be refurbished at the very least. We need a third ice rink. We need accessible access to the medic room. So it may very well be the case that there will be a real complete rethink. That raises the tricky question of how do you pay for that? You can actually do it in a couple of interesting ways. You can hive off some of the budget for, say, roads to pay for that capital cost, or you can impose a short-term tax rate that comes off after 2 or 3 years once it's paid off. You still have to deal with the operational cost of that new, large, expanded facility. And that means more people, more staff, more costs, more money. But I think we need to do it. We just have to figure out how.
Wayne, do you have a question?
Yeah, are you opposed to developers coming in and taking a percentage of the cost?
I'm not a big fan of developers taking a percentage of any costs for anything because they can count. You know, and then you're stuck around. That should be.
Great. Well, we'll go off to another public question. Sherry, you're going to answer this one first. Do you support, I'm presuming that should be integrated holistic mental health and addiction services, such as family counseling, exercise, nutrition, 12-step, 24-hour treatment models, and housing services in our community?
Well, yes, I do, but as a rule, they are separate functions. And they also have, people who do them report to different agencies. So it's very difficult to have an integrated set of like that unless you have an institution like Riverview used to be where that was actually the case. So in that instance, I would say yes, but we'll have to rethink it.
Great, Wayne.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Well, it's a tough one. It's on the board. Do you support integral holistic mental health and addiction services such as family counseling, exercise, nutrition, 12-step, 24-hour treatment models, and housing services?
Absolutely. There's so many issues that we have in our community, not in just our community, but all over the Lower Mainland. People that are using methadone, coming, they're homeless, they sleep on the streets. We have some great facilities that the mayor and also before has already have in place. We have shelters for people, and I believe that we can make a difference by actually putting out a little bit more money into these community services.
Great, and we have no time for questions. You guys use the full time. Well done.